So hi everyone, let's go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to Itentive's webinar on Refund Manager. My name is Chelsea Lukens and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator for Itentive. I'd first like to take a moment to explain the process for today's presentation. First, I would like to mention that this webinar will be recorded. Next, I'm pleased to announce that our next educational webinar will be on January 22nd at 12:30 Eastern Time, and it's going to be on medical records in minors, navigating parental and patient rights. We hope to see you there. We're going to be sending out an invitation to that tomorrow, and we'd be happy to invite you. If you're not on our normal educational webinar email address, just let us know you'd like to be, and we'd love to add you. So a few housekeeping notes. At the end of the presentation, we're going to open the floor up to questions from you. We're going to answer all the questions at the end, but you may type them in the questions area of the webinar control panel whenever they occur to you. Finally, for audio clarity purposes, everyone's phone will remain muted throughout the entire webinar. If you experience audio issues, please use the chat box and let us know so we can resolve them. And again, questions may be entered in the questions box. So the agenda for today, we're going to cover what is Refund Manager, how do you buy Refund Manager, how does it work, we're going to cover the different Refund Manager versions, we're going to do an excellent demonstration, then go through a brief Itentive overview, and finally we're going to get to your questions. Joe, whenever you're ready, go ahead and get started.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chelsea. And again, thank you to everyone for attending. We appreciate you taking time out of your day today. We know you're all very busy. One of the goals of these webinars, especially this one for Refund Manager, is to find ways to make you less busy. Refund Manager we created really to streamline and automate the refund process. 10 years ago, when we started working on version 1 of Refund Manager, we sat down with a number of NextGen practices who were spending all kinds of time doing data entry and data entry again in another system and annotating where checks went. We created Refund Manager to solve those problems. Over the years, Refund Manager has grown to encompass credits overall in NextGen. So in addition to refunds, it'll do tasking and distribution. And then as part of the streamlining and automating, it really made sense to have Refund Manager communicate with your accounting system. And as you can see on the slide here, there's a number of accounting systems that we directly support. There's a number of accounting systems that we've partnered with practices to help them create their own support for. And we also have XML and comma-separated flat files in case you want to create your own support for your financial system with Refund Manager. So the end goal here is to make your job easier. So with your productivity, obviously refunds, no one wants to do them. It's kind of a oxymoron because you're spending all this time to send money out of the practice. So we want to give you a tool that will make that more efficient and allow you to reallocate your staff into areas of the practice that help you generate revenue instead of giving away revenue. So this is an important concept in Refund Manager, that it's not really about taking anyone's job away, it's about allowing you to be more efficient in your back office. In talking to our clients over the years who have been using Refund Manager, we've been amazed by the feedback that they've given us in terms of the productivity they get from it. In fact, the first couple people who used it and gave us some big numbers, we went back and did the math to kind of validate it to make sure they weren't out of whack on that or just, speaking off the cuff. But when we calculated out the hours, it really was something that had a reasonably quick ROI in today's world. So we've had, people whose process went from, days or weeks of people doing refunds down to a fraction of that. And that's really what this tool is about. It's about making your life easier. So we do a number of things to help you identify the credit balances. We'll see those shortly. We help you reallocate credit balances to where money's owed. Again, we'll show you that also. And for accounting systems that don't do consolidation of checks, if you have multiple checks going to the same entity, we'll go ahead and do that consolidation for you. And again, we'll see that too in the demonstration today. But the key is, not so much what we say, but what others are saying.
One of the things I wanted to mention when I was at the NextGen user group this year in Las Vegas, I was talking to one of our clients and I said, oh, how are you doing with Refund Manager? And she said, oh my gosh, my office staff are doing cartwheels every day when we implemented this, it was just like the best day that our practice had. It just made everything so much easier and faster, and I just thought that was funny and cool, and apparently they're doing cartwheels because of Refund Manager.
I love cartwheels. So one of the questions is, for practices who haven't done a lot of work with refunds today and have put it off, why would you want to do it? Well, there's a number of reasons why you want to do refunds, and you probably need to do refunds. And this little chart here shows some of those. There's certain contractual penalties if you don't get money returned to Medicare quickly. If they overpaid you and they want their money back, well, you know how it is. They better get their money back. Insurance companies have similar provisions in their contracts, again, to make sure that if they do overpay or something works out in the insurance company's favor, that they will get their money back also. So we don't want to get in trouble with our third parties that are paying for our patients. So some states have laws where unclaimed credits turn into unclaimed property for the state. So that money would have to be then eventually submitted up to the state. Ultimately, by getting this money out of your system, you're not going to have any accounting issues by, especially for those of you who are on a cash basis, with thinking you have more money than you do, because that refund money, those credits, really, in most cases, belong to someone out there. And of course, the last piece of it is fraud. If credits are sitting out there that are looked at or deemed as, not being tracked or not belonging to anyone, well, it's real easy for that money to disappear in your practice, and that's something we want to help prevent with Refund Manager. So again, with this, the end game is to help you get those credits handled quickly, get those refunds out, and not make it such a burden. So again, some of the specific cases we've seen, with Medicare, suspension of payments, no one wants that. The doctors will be pounding down your doors. Potentially fines, which are even worse and sometimes in conjunction with the prior one. So again, those are all bad news. And as we just talked about with the insurance contracts, you don't want to get in trouble with your insurance companies. You want them to have a good relationship and pay you promptly. In worst case, you don't want an audit. So the state-specific laws, I talked a little bit in the prior slide about the unclaimed property. So this can end up being a big problem in some cases for organizations. So again, refunds, they don't get done because they're hard to do. If we make them easy for you to do, they'll get done and you won't have to live with these consequences. All right, and these two I covered as part of the prior slide, so let's go ahead and move on. Just to make up a little time here. So refunds today, we have this nice workflow up on the screen here, and I'm not going to go through all these boxes, but they should look familiar to you. This is really the approach that you're using in some way, shape, or form for doing your refunds today. It's a lot of manual work. It's a lot of entry. What we're going to do with Refund Manager is find ways to streamline and automate all these different steps that go on. So in the first column here, the billing, that's really the NextGen facing piece of it. So that's you going into NextGen, running your credit balance reports, trying to evaluate what to do with those credit balances, and then taking action on them, whether that's creating a refund transaction or applying the money to another encounter where money's owed. All those things are stuff you have to do repeatedly throughout the process. So if you're doing 500 refunds a month, you're doing that process 500 times. The accounting piece, traditionally, once those refunds are done in NextGen, someone runs a report or creates a spreadsheet, sends it over to accounting, and then they spend their afternoon doing all that data entry. Well, gosh, aren't computers really good at transferring data? So Refund Manager will take that data out of NextGen and put it into your accounting system for you. So we see the new and improved process here with the slide that just came up, which shows with the arrows that go across the boxes where we've streamlined and automated the steps in the refund process. So in the billing column, you can see a number of those steps get skipped now, and we're going to see that as we get into the Refund Manager itself. We'll look at a tool called the Credit Scout, which allows you to speed up that piece of it. For the accounting piece, The hours upon hours of data entry off a report or out of a spreadsheet, again, those go away too to help automate the process. And then all the way on the right, we're going to allow you to bring your check information back into NextGen so that data entry to put it in there is eliminated. That's going to be an automatic process where we go to the accounting system, pull back your check information into NextGen, and kind of close the loop. So you had your credit balance, you turned it into a refund, you sent it to accounting, and now they printed checks and you get the check number back into NextGen. So as I kept mentioning, I'm going to show you how RefundManager works in just a few seconds here. Where I'm going to focus on in RefundManager are these three modules that we're seeing on the screen here. We have the Credit Scout, which is used to find credit balances in NextGen and determine what action you're going to take on them. And the action could be I'm going to do nothing, I'm going to task it out for more research because this one's unclear, I'm going to do a distribution because maybe somewhere they owe money, so we don't want to refund it right away if they owe us money on another encounter, or we want to go ahead and issue the refund. So we're going to spend a little time in the Credit Scout showing you how fast and easy it is to, with just checkboxes to create these refund transactions. And then to help our accounting people, we have the Batch Detective, and that's the interface to the accounting system. That's going to go out and find your batches in NextGen that contain one or more refund transactions, and it's going to do the export out into the accounting system and eliminate the need to do all that data entry and eliminate the possibility for error in that data entry and just make life easier. And then the importer eliminates the data entry of the check information back into NextGen. And again, that's a couple mouse clicks and you have your check information populated inside NextGen. So the implementation of RefundManager, it's very straightforward. It's written to integrate with your NextGen database. It launches out of your NextGen EPM. Typical installation of RefundManager, anywhere between an hour and a half to get it set up. We give you some training videos to view while we're working with your IT staff on getting the RefundManager installed. And then once you've viewed the training videos and we've done the installation, we'll do a web meeting and we'll actually walk through some questions and answers and some refunds with you right in your system to show you how it works and make sure we are fitting into your workflow that you're doing around your refund process. So we make sure that this is a true hand-holding event, that we work with you from beginning to end. It's not a throw it over the wall and say, guys, good luck. We want to have our clients be successful with RefundManager, which is the reason we got those great quotes that we were showing at the beginning. RefundManager comes in 3 flavors, and it's really dependent on your need for refunds. So if you're a single practice, we have RefundManager Standard Edition, and that works with the lower-end accounting systems that are typically used for a single practice. If you're a larger single practice, then we have the Professional Edition, and that supports the kind of mid-tier accounting systems that we're seeing out there, like QuickBooks Enterprise and Dynamics GP, which is also known as Great Plains, and some of the other Sage accounting products. And then we have an Enterprise Edition, where if you have many different practices in your database and you want to be able to roll out RefundManager to all those practices within your enterprise, we have a solution for that too, which will allow them to use that, and it'll support multiple accounting systems if each practice has their own accounting system. So our goal here is to provide an appropriate return on your investment in RefundManager. All right, so that's my cue. We're going to dive into a demonstration here of RefundManager. So what I'm going to do is switch over to being the presenter. And there may be a little bit of change in your screen here as it pops up in size or reduces in size. But what you should be seeing now is NextGen EPM. And one of the things I mentioned earlier is we created RefundManager from the get-go to be integrated with NextGen. So we exist in the same database as NextGen. We get launched out of the EPM's add-on menu. EPM provides us the context of where you're at. So, you know, what your user ID is, what practice you're in. We even go as far as to look and see which database you're in from your most recent set DB. So if we look at the outer frame here, Refund Manager, we'll see on the top that our practices match up. We'll see on the bottom our databases match up, and so do the user IDs. So again, the key here is that it's not some separate application. You need to go and find the icon and launch it and re-log in. It launches out of EPM, and it knows your context, what you're doing in EPM, what practice you're in. A lot of Refund Manager is set up to work very similarly to EPM, and I'll show you that as we go ahead and step through the process here. Now for our demonstration, I'm going to focus on those three modules we talked about, the Credit Scout, the Batch Detective, and the Importer. And those are represented by these icons up here in the toolbar. So we'll jump into the Credit Scout first, and we'll do some refunds and some distributions in NextGen. We'll then export them out to the accounting system. Today for our demonstration, we're using QuickBooks, but it could be any of the supported accounting systems. And then when we're done with that, we'll close the loop by bringing the check information out of the accounting system back in to NextGen. So let's go ahead and start with the Credit Scout here. Again, similar to NextGen, our screens are set up so search criteria is at the top, results are at the bottom, and we use the right mouse menus for navigation. I'm going to go ahead and start a search here in our test database for some credit balances that are out there, and I'm going to take you through some specific ones which are really great examples of how Refund Manager works. Before I do that, though, I wanted to point out some of the search criteria along the top of the screen, and a lot of the search criteria is stuff that our clients have requested over the years to make their jobs even easier. So we had some clients that said, hey, you know, occasionally I'm just getting in here to do one or two refunds and I have the specific names I need, so can you give us a way to search by name? So that's in here. We can search by the name on the account, which is also the guarantor, or by the name on the encounter, which would be the patient name. We have some ways to kind of box in the search by date range. And where that's useful is if you're way behind on your refunds, and several of us probably are, then you can say, you know what, I'm just going to handle these in chunks. And maybe I'm going to do, you know, 60-day or 90-day or 120-day chunks and process the refunds within that. And then when I finish those, I'm going to, you know, move forward to another block of time. So we give you the ability to kind of narrow down the search by that. We can go ahead and set the sort order. We can go ahead and pick if we're doing patient refunds only that day, insurance refunds. We have some clients where they have different analysts in their CBO that work with different providers. So you can go ahead and filter by provider. And I'm going to skip over one field and address the appointment skip days. And that was an interesting one that came up several years ago where a client said, you know, hey, we got a lot of people with credits who also have appointments coming up. So we really don't want to refund them because we might be able to use that credit on that upcoming appointment. So we put in a number of days to look ahead for the appointment. And after the first time you use that, it'll go ahead and remember that value that you put in there. So if they have an appointment coming up in the next 7 days or 30 days, then don't show them as a candidate for a refund. And then we have some filtering options because one of the things we learned is there's a whole lot of credit balances in NextGen that you don't want to refund or you don't want to distribute. And maybe those are there due to balance control issues. Maybe those are deposits that are sitting out there. So we give you some filters, A, to eliminate those, and B, to find the best candidates for refunds. So the filters really build upon each other and help you find kind of the lowest hanging fruit first, the simplest refunds, the most straightforward ones, and then get ones that are a little more complex, and then, you know, you can just go ahead and open it up to any credit balance if you truly wish to do that. So down here below, we have our results from our search for credit balances that we did just a few seconds ago. And this is integrated with the NextGen database, so this is out of the same database. out of the same database that we're using. So I'm going to pick a few here. Normally the way we'd work this screen is we'd kind of click on these plus boxes here, and we'd move down and do an evaluation of if we wanted to refund it or not. So I'm going to start on our test patient, Mary and Kelly. And as we can see for Mary and Kelly, this top line here is a summary of the overall account. So we have our checkboxes to decide what we want to do, if we want to task it out, if we want to refund the balance, or if we want to try distributing it to other encounters where money may be owed. We have our account number in case we want to go into NextGen and look this up. We have our account name. We have like our dates of service, and we have our balance, which is $123 credit. Okay, looking over a little further to the right, we can see that it's all in the patient bucket and not in one of the payer buckets. Then underneath this, we'll see that for the particular patient within that account, there are 6 encounters that make up this balance of $123. One of the reasons I like to show this one is, especially with QuickBooks and some of the low-end accounting systems, it'll show off RefundManager's ability to merge all those encounters, all those refunds into a single check. So if we want to do 1 or 2 of these, we can go ahead and click down below and just pick the ones we want. If we want to pick them all, then we just click up higher and all of them get picked. So we'll see these again when we go ahead and export them out in a few minutes. But that was our test patient, Marion Kelly, who had the 6 encounters that make up the refund balance. Now that was also kind of an easy one because it was all patient refunds. But let's go down to another example that I like, which is Mildred Key. And before I expand this out, I'm just going to go across the right here and see there's a $277 credit overall. And 44 of that is in the patient bucket, 133 of that is Medicare, and if I scroll right, we'll see 100 in United Healthcare. Again, I can do what I did before. We can go ahead and click the plus sign. I'm going to scroll up a little so this all fits. And we'll see under Mildred Key, we'll see the encounter that makes up the patient refund. We'll see the encounters that make up the Medicare refund and the encounters that make up the United Healthcare refund. So it gets broken down by who's getting the particular refund. And we can even see for the payers if they were the primary or secondary and so on. Just like before, if you want to go ahead and just refund one of these, you pick the one. In our case, we're going to refund everything because we want to have some data to show you as we flow through the demonstration. Another great feature that's in RefundManager is the ability to define alternate refund addresses. Often the address you have in NextGen is really more claims oriented. Now recently in 5.7 and 5.8, NextGen has put in some refund address support. And I'll address how we integrate with that refund address support that's in NextGen here in just a second. But RefundManager has its own refund address book, and one of the great things about the RefundManager address book is you can define multiple addresses per payers for the refunds and store them and be able to pull them up. So again, Medicare Georgia, we're using an alternate address called Medicare Georgia Refunds 1. Down here for United Healthcare, we're using the NextGen address, but if we want to change that and pick one out of the RefundManager address book, I click that little button at the end of the line. I highlight an address. Again, there could be 1 here or 20 here, or we can go ahead and add them as we need to. And it'll use that address instead of the one in NextGen. As part of our integration with NextGen's new refund address capability, where you can set a specific, single address for a payer, we'll go ahead and we'll first look and see if you're using a RefundManager address. If you're using that, we'll pick that. If you're not using that, then we'll look at the refund address on the transaction and the refund address on the payer, or else we'll use the payer address. We've selected Mildred Key, all these different credits that we want to create refunds for, in which case there's 5 here, there's 6 up above that we did. So those ones in just a minute here are going to automatically get refund transactions created for them. In fact, we'll pick some other ones just to add to the quantity that we're going to do. But before we do that, I want to now jump into distributions. And a distribution in this case is when a patient has a credit on 1 or more encounters but owes money on 1 or more encounters at the same time. So instead of spending a lot of time searching through here, we can go ahead and pick Derek Kemp. And the clue to me when I was first going through here was that Derek has a $22 credit on the encounter, But when I roll it up, there's only $12 remaining, which means somewhere on one or more encounters, Derek owes us $10. So this probably isn't a good candidate for a refund just yet. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll pick the innermost checkbox, the rightmost checkbox, which is our distribution. Click on that, and it's going to show us how it wants to take that money, that credit, and distribute it out. So in this case, the current encounter is this 94455. It's going to take $10. It's going to apply it to this charge on this other encounter. And the way it works is it's kind of first in, first out. So the oldest ones get done first, and then it just keeps walking forward till it runs out of money to apply or places to apply it. And it'll create the transactions for those automatically. So another one I like to show here that's a little more complex is Dennis Kramer. And again, when we see the credits, we have 33 and 13, so $46 in credits. I get up to the next line, and there's only $1 left. So Dennis owes us $45 somewhere. So again, we'll pick that distribution. It's going to show us how it's going to take 45 of those dollars and apply it to this charge on this other encounter. And it'll create those transactions for us automatically.
So can I stop you? It looks like we might be having some audio issues. Again, we just got a comment from one person saying that they've lost audio. If anybody can hear us, can they please put a let me know in either the chat box or in the questions box? I want to keep going if no one can hear us. Okay, looks like some people can hear us. Looks like most people can hear us. Cindy, if you can't hear us, I'd recommend hanging up and dialing back in, as it seems like that issue may be on your end, because it looks like everyone else is able to. So,
all right.
I'll let you keep going on, Joe.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. Okay, so we just talked about this distribution for Dennis Kramer. Now, if we come to some other encounters with credits and we don't know what we want to do with them, we have a couple different options. So I'm going to pick June Kingsley here. And, maybe we look at it and we're like, I don't know, they have, a big balance here. Do we want to be doing refunds? We have some screens that'll mimic the account summaries and financial summaries that you see in NextGen, so you don't have to always toggle back to NextGen to do your research. In addition, if you didn't want to handle it right now because doing that research would kind of break your flow, you can go ahead and task those ones into the NextGen work log, and it'll create an encounter level task, and people can later on research those and then take the appropriate action on them. So I'm going to pick, just so we have data to send through here, a couple to task and maybe a couple more to do refunds for. So as we go through this process of just doing a review of your credits, this is a point where we're streamlining the process. Okay, instead of you now having to go into NextGen and create all these transactions for refunds and distributions, we're going to right mouse, tell RefundManager to go ahead and process these. We're going to pick the parameters we want to use. So for tasks, what task do we want to create? Well, let's use research. For our refunds, I did some refunds recently, so it remembered the last ones that I used. And for our distributions, where we're going to move the money from one encounter to another, we can pick an adjustment code or a payment code that we want to use for those. Now, it's going to remember these in the future, so it keeps track by person of the last one that you used, and it'll, when we launch the screen, go ahead and do that. We need to put these into a batch in NextGen, so we can search for an existing batch, or we can create a new batch right from RefundManager. So instead of us now going out there and creating 3 tasks, doing 14 refund transactions, and doing the 3 distribution transactions, I'm going to go ahead and click Start, and RefundManager is going to go ahead and do that for us. So right now it's going to go ahead and generate those 14 refunds. We'll see what those look like in NextGen in just a moment here. After it does those, it's going to go through and do our tasks, and then it's going to do our distributions. So all that work was just done in several mouse clicks and literally in, a number of seconds instead of minutes or hours. So the Credit Scout finds credit balances, helps you to take action on those credit balances, and does the work for you in NextGen. So if we come over here to NextGen and we go into our batch and pick out our batch that has our refund transactions, so here we go, 115, refund demo, we'll go ahead and balance this out so we can see all the work that was done for us here. And then after we balance it out, post it, we'll take a look at what's been done in NextGen and what that looks like. So this will just take a moment here as it that work for us, and it'll come up with our batch listing that we all know and love in NextGen. Okay, so let's take a look at the distribution first. So down here at the bottom of our report is our distributions. So here we did Derek Kemp. We'll look at the transaction that was created for us today. So it used the transaction code that we picked. The overall net is 0 because we're adding and subtracting the same amount of money. We'll expand this out and we can see where the money was picked up on one encounter and applied to another encounter, and that was done for us without us having to go into NextGen and create those transactions. So let's take a look at a refund now. So I'm going to pull up the chart, and 24351. And we'll take a quick look at the refund transaction, and then we'll get on to the accounting system and exporting the transactions into it. So on our transaction tab for our encounter, we can see this refund transaction that was created. And here in the tracking description right now, it just says RefundManager. When we're done, that's where the check information will be right there on the transaction. So if you go in, yeah, I came in, for a visit, oh, yeah, I see a check was sent out. And then we'll also create a note. All right, it's further documentation, and we'll see another note created when we export that out to the accounting system. So again, all this work gets done for you by RefundManager without you having, or your staff having, to go in and spend lots of time doing that. So let's jump back here into RefundManager and put on our accounting hat, and let's make life easier for the people on the accounting side of the house by eliminating the data entry into the accounting system. So what I'm going to do is find our batches that have refund transactions. I'm going to pick the one we just created today to export that out. So again, I'm using the right mouse just like we're used to in EPM. And it's going to look at which accounting system we're using and say, okay, depending on the accounting system and depending on our RefundManager setup, do we need to do this consolidation of checks? And for QuickBooks, it doesn't do a good job of consolidating checks, so it's coming up with the screen and telling us, hey, here's your consolidation. Now, as part of the consolidation setup, we can say if we want this on or off for insurances versus people. So right now it's on for people and it's off for insurances. So if we look at this check here for Mary and Kelly, we'll see these were those 6 encounters that we did originally that make up this one check. If we want to take a couple of these and merge them together into a single check, we certainly have the option to do that. So let's go ahead and pick those, and there we go. So it matched up because they were slightly different addresses for them. So it's smart enough to pull the ones with the same addresses into the same checks. When we've got that all set up, we hit the export button, and this is the part where it creates the demographic and the payment into the accounting system for us. So it eliminated all that data entry. So really, with the accounting side, all they need to do is go into the accounting system and do a quick review and then print their checks. So right now I have my checks in here, even the one that had the 6 encounters, and they're all waiting to be printed without having to spend hours doing data entry. We'll go ahead and print our batch because we want to get check numbers assigned to these. So from the accounting side, hopefully you can see how this makes your job just a little bit easier, not having to spend all that time doing data entry. We do our reprints still from the accounting system like we traditionally do. And now that the checks have printed, great, the accounting system, we printed the checks, it has check numbers now. So let's go ahead and get that back into NextGen so we have that documented in NextGen too. So we can go back over here to RefundManager and use our importer, find our batch that we just exported, right mouse import. It's going to go to the accounting system, it's going to get the check numbers, it's going to put them into NextGen for us. In fact, let's go back to our refund that we were looking at earlier on 24351. Our transaction, and remember where it said Refund Manager? Now it's got the check number, check date, and check amount in there for you automatically, straight from the accounting system. In addition, one of the things I promised before was another encounter note when we exported it, and it let us know it was exported. It also, because there could be several addresses in play between all the different refund addresses and the payer address, it captures that for you also in this encounter note. So this is our 10th anniversary year of RefundManager. We've been in partnership with our clients on this for a decade now, and we've added lots of great features over the years. We continue to add new features to RefundManager. We continue to keep it current with new releases of NextGen so that it continues to work for you and provide great productivity gains and allows you to take care of those credit balances and get them out of your system so that your financials are cleaner, your risk for fraud is less, and you don't have issues going forward with any of your payers, such as the government or insurance companies, and you make your patients happier too by getting their refunds out faster because they have obviously a personal interest. So it's really about streamlining and automating the refund process. What I want to do now is see if Tom's back online. If not, then I'll go ahead and continue with the slides.
I should be back online now.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Okay. So thank you, Joe, for going through the demonstration. And I just want to give you a quick overview of Itentive and who we are. We were founded in 2003, and our mission is to create additional value for your next-gen investment. We know that you have spent a lot of money with regards to the initial purchase of NextGen, and then probably had to add additional hardware. And then with the upgrades that occurred as well, there's additional investment that came with that. So your investment's grown over the years, and we at Itentive want to work with you to be able to get the most value out of that. We have 15 years of experience with NextGen, and we're a strategic partner of NextGen as well. If you take the 2003 and the 15 years, they probably don't add up if you do the math there, and the reason for that is Itentive started out as the IT department for a healthcare organization, and back in the late 90s and early 2000s, when business was going the route of focus on what you do best and outsource the rest, they were going to outsource the IT organization, and the leaders of the IT organization said, well, we'll create our own company and provide services back to you if that's okay with you, and they said sure. And we've never looked back. We've grown to 350 clients in that time frame as well. Next slide. Here's a quick look at our clients and where they're spread across the country. Next slide. This is a look at our services that we offer. With our experience, our vast experience with NextGen, we are very good at doing implementations of NextGen as well as doing upgrades of NextGen. We have a group of consultants that travel around the country and work with you on improving your processes and workflows within your organization. We have a group of developers that can also do template enhancements to the application to customize it for your specific needs, as well as a group of developers that can develop custom reporting, custom dashboards, write SQL scripts for you as well. We have a group of technology specialists that help on the IT managed services side, where we can manage your IT infrastructure, and we also have a computer center where we can do complete outsourcing of your total IT organization and host your environments as well. Next slide. This is a list of our productivity tools. We just talked about RefundManager. We have a product called ChartGuard that is our business continuity solution. And then we have another version of that called ChartGuard Archiver, which allows, mainly used with practices where they're bringing in a doctor from the outside that wants to load their information into NextGen, or you may have a doctor that's leaving the practice and wants to be able to take that information with them as well. We have 95 clients that are using our products, one or more of our products. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give myself or Joe a call or send us an email, and we will get back to you with an appropriate response. And at this point in time, if you have any questions, if you wouldn't mind typing them in, and then we could answer them for the group.
So it looks like we had one come in, and I believe that you've answered it already in the demonstration, but I'm going to ask it again just in case we missed it. When we run, wait, sorry, which one was it? Here we go. What if a patient has a credit balance on one encounter but a debit balance on another encounter? Will this product transfer the credit, or will it simply refund the credit?
Okay, that was that distribution feature that we looked at, where we saw there was a larger balance kind of on the encounter, but when it rolled up to the overall account, the balance was smaller. So RefundManager has that ability to take that balance, do a distribution on it to put it on other encounters where money's owed, and then in a subsequent run, if there's still money left, you could refund that remaining amount. So yes, it can definitely take money that's in a credit state and apply it to other encounters.
Okay, we got another question here. When we run refunds, we link it to a rendering provider in the accounting system, even though the refunds comes off at an account level. Is there some way to pull this rendering into RefundManager?
RefundManager, with pretty much all of the accounting systems we support, has a level of GL mapping, and that GL mapping depends on the capabilities of the accounting system. But traditionally, that GL mapping is practice provider location. You can build combinations that go to certain GL codes. So if each of your providers has a different GL account for their refunds, you could go ahead and map it that way and track it that way in your accounting system.
What information is on the checks for insurance refunds?
For insurance refunds, we go ahead and put the patient name, the policy number, and the visit date on the check so that the insurances have that. Sometimes, due to different insurance requirements, there may be a need to attach additional documentation to those checks. But for RefundManager, we give them kind of the minimum that an insurance company would need right on the check.
Let me see. What happens to an unpaid personal payments? What happens to unapplied personal payments?
Right now, unapplied personal payments we leave out there because they're not necessarily true credits, as in, you know, work has been done, the money's been applied, and now there's money left. So that money would be left out there for someone to take action with, and if they wanted to apply it to an encounter and then there was still money left, then RefundManager would go ahead and pick that up and put it through that refund process that we just saw.
Is it possible to print letters to go with each of the refunds? Who, what, why?
Due to limited time today, we didn't go into like every little feature of Refund Manager, but Refund Manager does have a mail merge capability where you can generate refund letters. It's similar to Microsoft Word where you set up a document with tags in it for like last name and practice name and amount and things like that. And then with each batch of refunds that you send to the accounting system, you can also generate a batch of refund letters.
It looks like Alyssa has raised her hand. Alyssa, I'm going to unmute you as I'm guessing that you want to verbally ask your question. So get ready to be unmuted. Okay, go ahead. Alyssa? Okay, perhaps you did not actually mean to raise your hand. If you have any questions, feel free to type them, and we'd be happy to answer them that way, as we aren't able to hear you. We are going to be posting a copy of this webinar onto YouTube later this afternoon, so if you want to go back and watch it, it's going to be on Itentive's YouTube site. I'll post the link for it on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn on our Itentive pages, so please friend us there. It's also a great place to figure out when we're doing our next webinars and catch up on any new information and insights that we're sharing in the industry. We got another question here. What's the cost of Refund Manager?
The cost of Refund Manager, as Joe had seen earlier in the slides, we have the standard version, the professional version, the enterprise version, and the prices range from $6,000 to $30,000. But we can work with you individually and work with specific pricing on that. So just go ahead and either contact myself. In fact, go ahead and contact myself and via email or via phone, and I can work with you on that.
We got another question. Is there a way to have the tracking description use the DOS instead of the encounter number?
Thinking about this one. The tracking description on the transaction today has the check number, check amount, and check date. Now, on the check memo, we do put the data service on there if it's a patient refund and for an insurance refund. So those will be in the memo line of the check. So it's kind of a split answer. So let us know if that answers your question. It's kind of a different one that we don't normally get, but traditionally the tracking description in NextGen has the check number, check date, and check amount. Because you're in NextGen on the encounter, you'd already have the data service. And then on the checks that get printed, if it's a patient refund, you'd have the patient name, encounter number, data service. If it's an insurance refund, the encounter number gets replaced with the policy number, just due to limited space on most memo lines on check stock.
Okay, well, we're going to hang on for a few more minutes here in case you have any other questions. Feel free to type them. Otherwise, again, Tom and Joe's information is on the screen. I forgot to mention this earlier. Joe was actually part of the team and oversees the team who created Refund Manager. So he really is the Refund Manager guru. If you have any questions, he's a great guy to reach out to. Tom's going to be able to help you with your pricing information and any detailed questions you might have about it. And feel free to email either one of those people if you'd like a copy of the slide deck or a link to the YouTube video of it once we get it up there. Looks like we have another question. Will a claim number print on the insurance refund check?
Today, the claim number does not print on the insurance refund check. If that was something that you needed as part of your process, definitely reach out to us and we can figure out what we can do to kind of fill that gap.
Again, everyone, thank you so much for your time today. I know it took a bit out of it, and we're happy that you decided to spend it with us. Follow us on social media to figure out when we're having new ones. And again, feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have. We're happy to help.
Thank you very much, everyone.